Today I have Carrie with me here, and what we're going to be doing is an interview around someone who's read the book, Awaken to Your True Self, Why You're Still Stuck and How to Break Through. And this is the first time I've done a full-length kind of interview with somebody who has not worked with me, right? So this is actually the first time we're meeting. But you've been sending over the past few months videos and emails about how this has been changing your life. And so I invited you to come on here and share about your experience, because the book itself offers a lot for people, with or without working with me. And you are an incredible testament to that. So I wanted to have you on here and share your journey and what you've learned from this, and the incredible results that you've had. So with all of that, Carrie, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. It means a lot.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here. So let's just start off with you sharing a little bit about yourself and what was going on in your life before the book.
Okay, so not to get into gory detail, but growing up was a little bit challenging. I had, some trauma related incidents in childhood, and then it grew into my adulthood. It followed. Um, and I was just getting out of a divorce and a marriage that went really, really sour, with kids. He was abusive and everything. And, everything kind of trickled downward from, having, issues as a child, having, trauma as a child. It trickled downward into my 30s and then into my 40s. However, I was using alcohol to medicate along with antidepressants. So when I picked up this book, I saw I was ready I was at wit's end. I
So before you got to the book, what were you doing? So earlier, before we started recording, you mentioned that, and in your emails, you've done therapists and all this other stuff. So there's going to be a moment of the book, but just paint the stage a little bit of the things that you've done, maybe things you've read, before you got to the book.
So I had 20 years of going to see therapists.
Wow.
And yeah. I mean, this is a lot. I've had 20 years of going to see therapists, 20 years of seeing a psychiatrist, getting on many antidepressants, and hoping that the magic pill would fix me and the therapy session would fix me. However, it was always, reflecting on the stories of the past and not healing from them. So it kept me in the stories and I kept reliving. And that experience just was carrying over and I couldn't get past it. It wasn't something that was, that I could move forward. It was keeping me there and I was negative and I wasn't helping people the way I wanted to. So during that time, I was doing, I was self-medicating. I was doing a lot of negative things that didn't help me move forward.
Like what?
I was weed smoking. I was smoking all day. Before that, I was drinking. And it was just because I couldn't heal and I couldn't get past these stories that I kept telling myself that kept me stuck in the past. And I wasn't taking any accountability for anything. I was blaming and victimizing everything. There was times where I was blaming my father for, choices he did 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was awful. I didn't let him live that down. He had a rough 20 years with me. And, now, I apologized. I think I told you that. I went to him and I apologized for being stuck for so long and blaming him for so long when it was just, something he did wrong, but it wasn't him who was stuck. It was me who was stuck. I didn't take accountability for my own being there and staying stuck in that situation.
And so how did he respond to you doing that after 20 years?
He started to cry. He was on the phone, you know, and I could hear him choke up. And he's like, he goes, I understand. And it might make me cry. He
It's
goes,
okay.
I understand, let's move forward from this, and, start living. And I said, yes, I'm not going to blame you for being stuck anymore. It's not, you said you did certain things that I didn't think were right, but that doesn't mean I should hold you accountable for the rest of your life. You know,
Yeah.
it was huge. It was a huge thing. I mean, I even apologized to my mom and to the people that I was staying stuck. I was blaming, I was victimizing, the whole
Yeah.
not taking accountability for my actions of being there. It was just awful way of living,
Yeah.
honestly.
And were you aware of that at the time, or is a lot of these realizations after the book? Yeah.
It was after the book.
Yeah.
Like when
So
I read about accountability, I was just like, oh.
yeah. So what was going on beforehand? Did you just think this is just how things were? This is everybody around you? So what was the mindset you were in before you even knew this was happening?
I was just like, this is how you're supposed to live with trauma. This is how I'm supposed to live. I'm supposed to live on, this. I hate saying it, but I'm supposed to live on disability and just hold on to hope that something will snap and break, and I will move forward. But nothing was working, though. The one thing you said is accountability for being stuck, and that was huge because once I read that, I was like, I had this like aha moment. I was like, are you kidding? Just accountability for being stuck. Yes, that makes sense. It was huge. I woke
Yeah.
up.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just something just so simple and just no one's told us, or we haven't heard it, or we weren't ready to hear it. And then it's just like, oh, accountability and responsibility for where I'm at. Why? Oh, because I'm the only one that can do something about it. Oh, oh my God.
It was so that I was
Yeah.
I was like, accountability. I'm accountable for staying in those moments. I'm accountable for feeling the way I'm feeling. I need to move forward, move past this, and get through it and feel it out. And I was feeling it out through exercise. I was dancing, I was running, I was, doing things more with my kids,
This is after the book, with the book,
during the
during
book.
the book. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's, we got a lot to talk about here with the book. So we just wanted to set the stage of how much of your life wasn't working. So if you were to put a percentage to it, how much of your life wasn't working?
90% of.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, you were alive. You have a home. You have
I was surviving.
beautiful children, but
I was surviving.
surviving. Yeah. Not
It
thriving.
wasn't living, it
Yeah.
was survival mode. And that was huge for me. It's like I don't feel like I'm living the passionate life. I don't feel like I'm really a human. I feel like I'm a machine just going through changes and not feeling changes.
Yeah.
I was so emotionless and heartless. Um, a
Well,
lot.
you
Go ahead.
go ahead. But you were kind of drugged up, right? You were on
Yeah,
antidepressants. You were on self
big.
medication.
Antidepressants were huge. I was on trazodone. I was on venlafaxine. I was on Adderall, and it was all treating PTSD.
Mm,
And honestly, I haven't touched those in 145 days,
that's amazing.
and I feel
Yeah. Wow.
I feel amazing.
I mean that alone is just remarkable. But that's not it. I mean that's just a bit. So you've sent me emails and videos. I mean you've had weight loss. I mean just all of this incredible stuff that I want to get into. Um, but before we get into that, how did you find the book? How did you come across Awaken to Your True Self?
I was reading An Empath by, it was my best friend's friend, Miles something, and I can't remember the last name. I don't have the book. I shared it with my aunt.
It's okay.
But I was reading that book and I was like, I need to read again. I need to figure this out. I need to find my journey. I need to realize what's going on, because she touched on the healing portion of it and it was very little, but it was, it was like, okay, so maybe I need to go spiritual. So I was looking up spiritual and somehow I ran across your book, and I was like, I'll try this. And every night I go outside. My kids are not outdoor people, and I love the outdoors. I don't care how warm, cold, whatever. I'm outside. So I was out, I found that book and then I started reading it, and I was just like, and in it you say not to totally take it as like a read, not to read it like a novel. So I
Oh
took
yeah, yeah,
I took your advice and I was reading 10 pages, but there were sometimes I'd read 20 or 30. And I was just
yeah,
like, I was practicing, and there was times where I was practicing something ahead of what I read. And I didn't realize. And then when I read it, I'm like, oh my gosh. that's so that's so crazy, because I was practicing what you were
yeah,
saying ahead of time. But
yeah,
it was inspiring. I finally it finally clicked. Like something clicked inside my brain. And
great. So you got the book. How long did it take you to read the whole book?
oh gosh, probably a couple months.
Yeah,
And that was reading almost every night. There were some nights I missed,
yeah,
but like, I was highlighting,
yeah.
I
Let's see it. Let's see the
mean,
stuff you've highlighted.
it was highlighting, stuck in reverse. Oh, there's so much, my grandmother had PTSD, and the reverse wiring was huge. Avoidance of life was huge.
Yeah, we're gonna go chapter by chapter. So, yeah, um, because it sounds like you got a lot from it. So it took you a while, and it took you a while, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, so you correct me if I'm wrong. But from what you're saying, is it took you a while because you actually followed the instructions. You actually read it. You read it and learned from it. You took it in. You applied the stuff. Did you do the exercises?
Yes.
Yes. So you did the exercises.
Mm-hmm.
You followed the instructions. You did the whole book. And you're telling me you got some results? I think you said your whole life changed?
Yeah, well, let's
Yeah.
just put it this way. I did a whole 360.
Yeah. So let's hear about how your life changed. So just take it from the top. What what looks different now in your life?
Everything. Emotionally, I am I'm more stable, but I'm very emotional. I cry, when my kids say I love you. I cry, during inspirational moments and emotional moments where I wasn't crying before. I didn't show any tears. I didn't care. I've lost 40 plus pounds. Everything was like a mirror reflection. I have a lot of confidence now. I had no confidence, no, my whole journey, I've decided to go into fitness training. I got my certification for a personal trainer.
That's
And
amazing.
I did it in 5 weeks. I mean, um,
Congratulations.
thank you. Luckily, I had EMT passed. So, I mean, the anatomy and physiology was pretty easy. But like everything else was changing. I came off the medication slowly. Um, it took me 4 weeks to get off all of them. But I knew a lot about medications too. I've been on them for 20 years. So, yeah, you go up, down with everything and they change. And now I'm not on any medications for PTSD. I don't even go with that title anymore because I've learned how to heal from that with your book. I don't even say I have PTSD anymore because I think that's an overused diagnosis that a lot of people don't know how to self-heal and don't know how to do the work that you very much wrote about. And the work is important. You have to learn how to be accountable for your actions and be accountable for being stuck. It was huge. I mean, I dug a grave. What I say to people is I dug myself a grave, I buried myself in it, and then I pulled myself back up. Because that's what I feel like now. I'm actually living versus surviving instead. And surviving it was awful.
It sucks, yeah.
It was awful.
Yeah, just getting by. And so are you drinking and smoking as much? Oh,
I do a little bit of weed before I go to bed because with those medications, your body just it's
yeah.
really hard to sleep. But I don't drink. I haven't drank in 2 years. So
Right.
the smoking of weed, I do it before I go to bed, and that's it. I mean, during the day, it's like I exercise, I've been doing this thing called 75 Hard. It's a program. I'm also marathon training.
Amazing.
See, I told you I have a lot more going on.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
So what else? What else has changed? What about your relationships? You talked about your father. What else?
Right. Yeah, my relationships with my father has changed tremendously. I'm more confident with him, and I apologize for being stuck and blaming them. Like there was many years where I would call on the anniversary date and just give it to them, and
Wow.
yeah, and I was a drunken mess during that time, but I would just yell at them and scream at them and blame them and victimize myself during this whole process instead of taking accountability that I was stuck back there and they weren't, you
Yeah.
know. They were not stuck. I was. And, they kept saying, Carrie, I'm sorry, but you need to move on and start living. And that wouldn't click. It didn't click. I didn't get that. Your parents say certain things and you think, oh, yeah, it should click. It didn't
Yeah,
click.
or the people, right, that well, of course they're going to tell you to move on cuz they're the one to blame.
All right.
And so it's really hard to hear it from the people that you think that, you know, did the thing that are keeping you stuck. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they just made bad choices, and it's not their fault that I mean, they were young, you know. Um,
Yeah,
it,
so I mean, you one of the things in the book, right, that you learned that I talk about is that there's a difference between taking responsibility versus blame, right? So yes, they made those choices. Yes, they're accountable to it. Um, but the blame is what was keeping you and them stuck, right? It's like it doesn't absolve them of what they did, but you don't have to hold them and you and your entire life and relationship hostage because of it.
no,
Yeah.
no, and that was huge. My parents, they made the wrong decision a couple times, but it doesn't mean I had to stay in that time period. It was time to
Yeah, you were using it to suffer way after it ended.
20 years after it
Yeah,
ended,
wow.
30 years after it ended, you know?
Yeah.
I was holding them hostage for that and
Yeah.
blaming, and then I was victimizing myself. I was telling the stories to everyone who wanted to listen. And now it's like I don't share that unless I'm trying to educate someone
Yeah.
that you can get through this, because it's important that others can get through this.
Yeah.
It's, it's trauma that you just don't, there's ways you don't victimize yourself anymore. You stay accountable for your actions and stop blaming others and move
Yep.
past.
And that's how you get on with your life.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. It's like you can either have the righteousness and the pity party
Mm-hmm.
and tell anyone that's willing to feel sorry for you and be stuck, or you could give that up and go have a life.
Exactly. Go up a mountain.
Yep. Which you did. You sent me
I did it
pictures.
a couple
It's
times.
amazing. And so you sent me a picture of you and your girls. How's that relationship changed? How's it changed being a mother?
It's big time. I'm more emotional with them. I'm not so pushing them away. I recognize certain things, certain traits that they have. They have issues, and I'm trying to teach them how to you know work through their problems, but yet let's play too. Let's go out and have fun. Let's do this. I'm more empathetic with them. I show more care and love and less pushing them away, because
Would you call it compassion?
yes, less, you know I they don't they were seeing me wreck my life for many years. They were seeing me, you know, isolate. Isolation was a huge key. Even with my kids, I was isolating myself, and it was because I didn't know how to feel, and I didn't know what I had to do. I didn't know the work. I didn't know what was going on, and I was pushing them away, and they're the ones that I shouldn't be pushing away. It was it was heartbreaking, but now it's extremely to the point where, we're always together. I'm always hugging on them, telling them how much I love them and how much I care about them. It's changed my whole motherhood. Like, I have so much more emotions to give to them instead of um, not towards them at all.
And you're able to receive theirs, right?
Yes. Yes. Like, they're starting to say I love you to me, and it's just like, it makes me cry. I get teary-eyed when they show feelings, because it's good feelings, and I'm not used.
Yeah. Wow.
And I wasn't used to feeling those feelings. It was like I had a protective coat on, and the feelings came at me, but I didn't feel them. I didn't allow them to get to my heart. And now it's like a total difference.
Yeah. To penetrate you.
Mhm.
So what were you protecting yourself from?
Hurt. I was protecting myself from being hurt. And I don't know why I thought they would hurt me, but it was, I don't know, it was that protective coat that that you think you need when you haven't dealt with something. You don't want anybody to get close. And that was the one thing that I was having a problem with, was I wouldn't let anybody get close, to include my kids. And that's the first time I've ever admitted that. But that's something that, it was so part of me. And now looking back, I was I was I was a ticking bomb ready to go back to drinking. And now it's like I don't touch anything that's not supposed to go in my body, and it's crazy. That's to include food and certain stuff like that. And
Sure, yeah.
I'm a vegan, so
Yeah.
everything is, everything that goes in my body is supposed to. So
Yeah. So what about any other relationships, friends, other family, intimate relationships?
the intimate and the friends, like the intimate relationship, I didn't realize this, but before the book, I was always attracting the wrong ones. I was always attracting the hurt or the angry or the alcohol dependency, drug addicts, all the wrong.
And you were an EMT?
Uh-huh.
Oh, so any sense of, rescuing kind of thing?
I
Yeah.
was rescuing all the ones that needed help themselves.
Yeah.
So that took on a huge toll on my heart, because I was always trying to help them, but I was also not helping myself during the
Yeah.
process.
And they probably weren't helping you either.
No,
Yeah.
a lot of them were dependent on something. Like
Yeah.
my ex-husband was dependent on alcohol. So we were toxic. It was a toxic, every relationship prior to this book was a toxic, bad relationship that right now, seeing it on this level, it's like I would have never.
Right. Yeah.
And now it's like I would have never done that. I would have never done that. But then I was just like, it was desperation mode. The codependency was huge. It was, I was afraid to be alone and codependent on the sufferers.
Yeah.
Instead of independent on being strong and being comfortable with myself and being, passionate and honest and staying present.
Yeah. One of the things that we find is that, as I talk about in the book, of her stories and her mythologies, on page 1, right in the very beginning. Well, what we find that happens is that for many people, they're not actually in a real relationship. It's their stories, it's their myths that are actually connecting and relating to each other. So you had the rescuer and the rescuee mythologies relating to each other, the codependency stuff coming together.
Yes.
And what you find is that that's not a real relationships. It's these stories, it's these myths relating, but there's not a real intimacy. There's not who our true self is and their true self coming together. But when you're in it, you don't realize it, right? When you're in it, the stories run you. And so you don't know any different. You think, oh, this feels great. This feels like love, because that's the love that you've known.
Right. And I thought, the love that I knew was, always reflected on anger, animosity, frustration, bitterness, sad dependency, codependency, dependency on drugs, alcohol,
A lot of
etc.
dependencies. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, that was a huge thing. Now, yeah, the whole codependency, the reverse. Oh, the one thing that got me was reverse wiring. I looked back at my grandma, and she was it. She, didn't do any kind of. She didn't heal. She just survived with 6 kids, and didn't deal with it. And
And
we
so
learned.
and so you saw the reverse wiring in her.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
What was one of the things?
the cold, the bitterness, the codependency. Um, she was a yeller. Um, you know, if you didn't do things her way, she would tell you. The older generation, and she was, strong, but she was so weak too, and so dependent on my grandfather. And I realized that she had so much that she didn't deal with. Like, she was, not to get into her history, but she had some childhood sexual trauma. And she didn't, back then they pushed it underneath the rug, and you basically dealt with it through either medications later in life, or you didn't. And she did both,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But she was the reason. I don't blame her, but I think if she would have gone through she would have gone through what I did, and read and learned how to live and not survive, that things would have changed the whole dynamic of the family.
Of course. Sure. Well, and look what is going to happen for you. Your relationship with your children has changed tremendously. I mean, just that one thing around communicating love,
Mm-hmm.
that is going to affect generations. You understand that what you just talked about her, that's you
I know.
and
Isn't
your
that
children's children, right? So you've ended these familial mythologies, these genetic stories that have been passed down through your family. You're the person who said, "No, we're we're done with this. Let's heal this. I'm not going to live my life. I'm not going to let my children live that life." And you became um, sort of the hero in that lineage. You became the thing that transmuted all of that pain and suffering. Not and here's the cool thing is that it's not just for your future generations. It's for the prior ones. Because look what happened to your relationship with your dad, your parents, when you change that. So it doesn't just trickle down, it also trickles back up.
which is amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing because there was a lot of hurt, and now I don't stay stuck in that past anymore, and I learn to live. And with your help, you were huge. You woke me up. And
And I
it's like you grab me and go, wake up.
yeah.
I It's huge. I didn't foresee it. I didn't see it. I didn't realize it. And it was a big life change. I thought for sure I this was my life. I was going to survive through it. And I was going to cry myself to sleep on many nights and do the wrong things over and over and have the negative follow. But instead, I stopped. Those stories don't define who I am anymore. They're not who I am, you know? I learned to let them go. I learned to not stay stuck in the past. I learned to forgive. I learned to take accountability for now all my actions. Everything I do now is, that's a reality check. I look at everything I do now as a stepping block, and it's huge. It's huge. It's put me in a different mentality. I'm abundant. I think abundantly instead of scarcely. Scarcely was the only way to think for me, and now it's totally not I don't think that way.
Yeah, wow.
Even through negative things, like you mentioned that I'd be reading this over again, and you're right, I will be future. But I think, my phone is dying, and I hit a deer, it's going to cost me $2,000, but it's not the end of the world. It's not where I need to stay stuck in. It's the fact that I need to grow and become more okay with things going wrong and deal with things going wrong as is, and not stay stuck in those moments. They're not bad moments. They're just reality checks.
Just moments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A car is replaceable. I'm not.
How blessed are you to be safe? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a huge thing.
And it's only $2,000. Rather, it's not 20 or 200.
It could be a lot worse. I could be in a
dead.
hospital bed. Not moving.
Yeah. So you get to see that's real gratitude, right? It's not this fake gratitude. I'm going to write down the 4 things I'm grateful for today and not feel it. But it's actually realizing, oh my gosh, how I'm projecting, the meanings I'm giving to all of this stuff don't serve. Whether they're true or not, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it sucks or not. Yeah, it kind of sucks. Okay. But is it worth taking your life out? Is it worth being miserable? Is it worth weeks of being scared and pissed? No.
I mean, my cat died, and it was awful.
Yeah.
But it's not going to keep me down anymore. Like, those kind of things used to keep me down.
Yeah. Well, can you see the beauty now? Can you see more of the beauty of, yeah, it's awful your pet dies. It's tragic.
It's tragic.
And, right? It's and
it's moving forward.
Yes.
And, learning how to feel the emotions that the pet did die, but she was suffering.
Yeah.
So looking at the positives behind the negatives, and focusing not only on the negatives, and, educating that there was, my kids had a hard time and it was awful, but,
it's part of life, right? They have to learn that.
They have to learn that.
Yeah.
And I told them, I said, you don't want her suffering. She's suffering really bad, and we got to move forward. It's about moving forward. We'll keep her here. I'll bury her. I went and buried her. I bought her flowers and kept her fur, put it in a necklace. But it's about moving forward, not staying stuck in the past. Even for kids. Kids were, even for kids, because they sometimes get stuck. And I will be the first one to say I got stuck being 7 years old for so long. Like, I had the mentality of a 7-year-old, but then I grew from that. And, there was part in the book where I was hugging that 7-year-old going, it's okay. It's time to grow up. It's time to be an adult and make adult decisions. I'm okay now. Let's live. So it was huge. It was a huge thing.
Yeah, it is. That's beautiful.
You have no idea how much you touched my life. I mean, I wasn't doing yard work. I wasn't taking care of the house. I wasn't thinking. I was living. And not living. I was surviving.
Yeah.
And that's not a way to live. It was awful.
Yeah. Well, let's transition to what specific things you've learned from the book.
Okay.
Things that you've learned that have led you to all of those results. I mean, we've spent 30 minutes talking about all of the incredible transformations and changes in your life. Now, sure, it came from the book, but you made the choices, right? This was your choice. You bought the book, you read it, you followed the instructions, you put in the work, you faced your fears, you had the courage, you did this, right? This was your choice. And the only way it could be your choice is if you were responsible, right? That it is up to you. So, with that being said, we spent this whole time talking about all of that, all of the amazing stuff you've done. Let's talk about how you were able to do that. The things that you've learned, the things that you've realized.
It was a lot. I mean, we could spend all day on this. Stopping the stories, the amnesia exercise was huge. That was a big thing for me because once I stopped talking so much and about those stories, me, it was almost like that narcissism trap, um, you know, and self-consumed. I was I was taking over the conversation at many therapists, with many therapist session by saying, why does this happen to me? Why am I living like this? Narcissism, that was huge for me because there was so much. you know, uh, I was wasting my life and energy trying to solve a problem that didn't exist, while under the illusion that it does. It was suffering.
Here, we're gonna try a different approach.
Okay, because I'm going. There's a lot. We have a lot of pages.
Yes. The table of contents is a chapter itself.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll go down the list so it'll help you maybe be more spontaneous than trying to think your way through it. Okay, so all right, your Stucky story. Chapter 1, your Stucky story. Stories and mythologies. What did you learn about that? It's kind of the foundation to a lot of understanding what runs us.
I thought that retelling that story would help. I thought that, every time I went to a different counselor, they were like, okay, so why don't we just talk about what happened? And I kept, because I moved a lot. It was moving a lot and, staying stuck in those stories and telling everybody about those stories. Well, how do you feel about those stories? Why, what's going on? And I'm like, well, I can't get past it. I'm having nightmares. I'm doing this, flashbacks, everything, living in those moments. And then I couldn't understand why there were so many people that could heal from pain where I was still experiencing. You know, uh,
You just set the book down and you can just talk.
okay. the you know the that amnesia exercise, forgetting that you even had it, was huge for me because I stopped. When I read that, I was like, okay, I'm going to take his advice and just try talking about it. Not, maybe it'll work. And I did. I focused, on living and not surviving through those stories. And those stories kept me stuck and so passionately stuck in them. I was angry. It was every single emotion I had to hold it together. It was so much work. It was exhausting. But it, I, I felt like just telling those stories that was my identity. That was who I am. Everybody would feel bad for me. I would get what I wanted. And really, that's not what I want. I don't want people to look at me as going, "Oh,
Yeah.
poor you." You know. It was that's not the whole point. You want to live past that. You want to, show that there's ways to improve yourself and not be, so hard on yourself for something that is in the past and behind you.
Yeah, that's I say in that chapter. Our stories bind us to the past, right? Because a story isn't about what's happening; it's by definition in the past. And so the more we relive and retell these stories, the more it binds us. It literally keeps us trapped in the past. And that's why one of the reasons we can't move forward, because we have all of these stories and they keep us in the past. And so by letting them go, you are able to move forward.
Exactly.
But we don't want to let them go because they're all we know.
That was my identity for so long. It was I was having a problem. I was going out on dates, and that would be the first thing I tell them about. And they would be like, they'd be like, "Okay, let's go, running through the hills."
Yep.
And I'd be like, "But what did I do wrong?
I'm being honest." Yeah, right.
Just being honest with you.
Yeah. All right. And so next one, where change happens. This is where we talk about the true self and vulnerability. So what'd you learn about that?
My true self was deep. It was buried inside. The vulnerability was a huge thing because I figured, I thought that showing feelings was wrong. Showing any kind of love for anything was wrong. And, to include myself, loving on doing self-care is huge. And I thought it was a wrong thing to do. If I showed myself love, then I'm not showing anyone else love. But that's
selfish, something like that.
Yeah, I thought that being selfish is not being selfless, when it's opposite. To be selfish, to be selfish and do things for you, then you can turn around and be selfless. It was huge. It was a huge wake up. The vulnerability, allowing my heart to get crushed, or to, feel again, to have emotions, when things don't go right, because not everything does. That feeling of, okay, it's okay to, let wrong things happen. It's okay for that to happen. I didn't think it was okay. If I had the block on my heart, then, it was okay to just survive.
Yeah.
And right now, I mean, I'm very vulnerable. I don't wear my heart on my sleeves per se, but I don't, I let people in that deserve to be let in. I'm
So you have boundaries too.
Yeah, I have very good boundaries.
Oh,
I have a very good judge of character too.
The next chapter, an equation for suffering. Right? So this is how we suffer. And the math, right? The -1 + 1 = 0 equation.
Right. Suffering was huge. I would stop living. It wouldn't, I wouldn't do things. I would do things in survival mode. I would get my kids going, go to school, eat breakfast, get up, fix some dinner, put them to bed, and then I would deal with the emotions beyond the emotions in the grave, basically, because in all aspects that's what they were. They were negative, and just I was warped into feeling everything negative, to include all the past. And it was just, it's like this big like cloud that just kept me not feeling anything, feeling numb, feeling lifeless, instead of, being present in the moment. And I wasn't paying attention to anything. I was selfish to just focus only on my feelings.
Well, you weren't really, it wasn't really the real feeling. It was the suffer. It was the indulgence in the suffering.
Mm-hmm.
Because you've learned the difference between, well, what are these feelings? And, that's actually the next chapter. So let's talk about that. Perfect. Right? The difference, and this one's when intellect slows you down, about intuition and being in our head, and the difference between feeling versus feelings. So what'd you learn about feeling and intuition and the ego and being in our head?
I was in my head way too much. And not feeling what was going around, not feeling the love from others, not feeling the compassion from my kids, not feeling their hugs they would give me. I was self-indulged. I only wanted, it was almost like I wanted to feel negative, but I really didn't. It was the only way I knew how to feel. I thought that the only thing that I should be feeling is sad for myself because I went through so much, but instead it was what was keeping me there and not in the present. It was indulging in the negative
Of the past.
of the past, those stories that I continuously told. And I would look for negative traits in people and think they were always out to get me or to get my kids. And it's not the way that it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
So it was a huge thing for me.
Okay, so then the next chapter, the most important person, right? Narcissism, narcissistic image, narcissistic supply and objectification, meeting our needs. That's a big chapter. There's a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All those things, our needs, objectification, the narcissistic image, all these things. What'd you learn in there?
That I was very narcissistic, holding on to those stories and thinking that those stories were the identity of me. I thought that if I told the stories enough that I'd feel better, when all actuality it was absolutely the opposite. Every time I told those stories, I always felt like I was reliving, which I kind of was. And then I was holding on to, poor me. I've gone through so much, and I stopped living. I wasn't holding myself accountable for the actions that I was still somewhat of a little girl experiencing it, or a 20-year-old experiencing it, because I thought that it was who I was. It defined me for so long. And then once I stopped telling those stories, once I became unstuck, once I started living, I started realizing that's not what defines me. I'm a compassionate person. I have feelings and I show love. And I don't need to victimize myself anymore from it.
All right. Now, what about the spiritual path is failing you? Right? The suffering, the spiritual path. Yeah.
I thought for sure, because I was raised Catholic, and I thought for sure that we always think if we pray enough, we'll let go. That didn't work. That's never worked for me, anyways. I thought that praying and doing a lot of Bible studying or really researching on the empath journey was gonna resolve all the anger, bitterness, stories, frustration I was going through, when actually it wasn't. It was kind of hindering, and it would push it aside for the moment, but it wasn't getting the work done. I would read a bunch of spiritual books, and I thought for sure, okay, well, if I read more of the spiritual side of it, will it help me? Well, in turns, it was helping, but it was also like pushing everything aside and not, it kind of brought me to the point where I found your book, and I found the journey portion of that. It was like, oh, well, that makes a lot of sense. Why I'm still reading all these spiritual books and not doing the legwork portion of it. So I was, my best friend, she's going through this, and I'm trying to use, like, she's not a reader. So I'm like, I have to keep going back to it and going, okay, Kathy, this is what you're doing. Let's work. And she's like, Carrie. But it's true. It's like because you think that you can. It was like I was very much devoted into my empath journey, but then I was like, I'm still feeling this doom. It's not working.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, because the resolution isn't outside of you.
No.
Right? It's not up there. It's here. And it's now. If you're not happy here and now, you're not happy.
At all.
And all the stuff, and then all the things that we try to do to get there without being here just takes us further from what we want. It actually makes more suffering because we're further away from the truth. Even though on the surface it looks all like spiritually sparkly.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly it. I thought for sure, if I did, work on my empath journey, I still do work on that. I still get in touch with because I'm a nature empath. I still get in touch with that, but it's different now. It's more living versus
using it to hide out. Yeah. There's a lot of people that will come across certain abilities and skills or modalities, and they end up hiding in it. And I've been there, done that.
I was too. I was outside every night, just smoking my life away, and thinking, oh, I'm just getting in touch with the earth now. I'm isolated.
Yep, avoiding. All right, so the next one's the victim trap. So I think we can move past that one. I think you've talked a lot about how you saw you were a victim.
Yeah.
Right. The blame game.
The blame game, yeah. And
yeah.
Holding myself, in that role for so long. But it's like, God, once that accountability was huge, it was a release of that victim trait.
Yeah, I mean, it can be a whole life identity. Then the next chapter is avoidance of life. And this is what you've talked about a lot, of just how you were avoiding living.
Mm-hmm.
And here, this is where we talk about avoidance, right? How when we avoid, we aren't resolving, right? And so if there's something we are chronically avoiding, chances are there's something in that thing that's going to move us forward. So what'd you learn about avoidance? It sounds to me like you stopped avoiding a lot of stuff, and when you started doing them, your whole life started working.
It's crazy you say that, and that's exactly it. Like I started, I stopped, isolation, and I started, I signed up for a gym membership. I started, hanging out with people that I never thought I would hang out with. And they were good people. They were, happy people. I started, who'd have thunk happy people would change you? Um, I started, getting passionate over things, over exercise, over, educating myself, over educating others, going on Instagram, doing reels, doing videos, really, emphasizing on self-care and, emphasizing on your book. It's all things I didn't think I would do. Like I never,
Those aren't me. I'm not that kind of person, right?
yeah, those weren't me. Those were not me. I was not a people person. I'm not a in the camera kind of person. I'm like, ooh, camera, ooh, nowadays it's like any way I can help someone, I'm all about it. I'm
So
not
so
the
you can so you can even see that when you're avoiding the camera, that's actually, it may be you making it about you, right? Because it's about you hiding rather than helping people.
exactly that
Yeah.
exercise. That one exercise did it. You know, when you put yourself in front and you have to really see how you act and how you
Yeah.
prepare yourself, it's huge. You know, I I watch videos. I watch how I was before I found your book and how I am now. It's a total night and day.
It's amazing.
It's like there was a spark of energy that was drained and like negative, and now it's like I'm ready. Let's go. I'm excited. Let's go. It's so different, and I'm passionate and loyal and ready for this for life. I never was like that.
Well, this leads us perfectly. There's a reason these chapters are in this order. It's
Oh, I
they're not written this way on accident. This leads us to stop fixing and start living. Right? Ready for life. Start living.
yeah.
We've been talking about that a lot.
Start living and stop. Stop
Fixing.
surviving.
Yeah.
Yeah, stop fixing those. Trying to fix. That was the whole. Once I hit that, that was like 140 days ago. I stopped medications. That was the whole stop fixing period. Was when I realized that the medications were also hindering the emotional aspect of who I am. I wasn't able to feel. It was almost like I was drinking.
Yeah. The thing people don't realize about these drugs is that you can't shut down one without shutting down the others.
Correct.
So you can't shut down the bad feelings without also shutting down the good feelings.
Exactly.
And so
And
you're just kind of a zombie.
that's what it made me feel like. That's exactly what it made me feel like. I was on Adderall and I was angry, and it helped me like get stuff done, but in another essence it was also like preventing me from feeling and being emotional, and I was stern and angry and resentful. So when I figured, these medications, I mean, it was hard. And, I always tell people, I'm like, don't do it. Don't do it unless you have a doctor. Don't do it. It's harder than you think, you know? But, I'm grateful that I did it because it was an eye opener, because then I really knew that the book was helping and that I was learning a lot from it, and that it
Well,
was.
and so just for clarification, I don't say that in the book. I don't
Oh
say
no, no,
that was that was your own choice.
this
Yeah.
was my choice. This wasn't
Yeah.
the book whatsoever. I decided to try it, because my best friend was like, I don't take any pharmaceuticals, and I was like,
I don't recommend them. I actually don't work with clients who are on them because of how it affects the emotions and feeling, and it changes, so we can't get accurate I can't get accurate information about what's going on for that person because the work's based on feeling. So, when people are on this stuff, they, in their own accord, if they want to do the work, um, they can't be on it. It just doesn't work.
doesn't work
Um,
whatsoever.
yeah,
It was kind of like the alcohol with me. It was a hindering. It was like, oh, well, this is gonna be used to make you stop feeling. And
yeah.
that's
Well,
exactly what it did.
yep. And this work is the antithesis of that. This work is about to feel, to start feeling everything and learning how to do it for real and how that's going to actually heal you. But we live in a society that it's more important to just function and operate the machines. And so if you can get the people to operate their machines without all this pesky love thing and life thing and emotion thing getting in the way, well, let's figure it out. But in the long run, it just doesn't work. It never really works. It works in the sense that you may not feel bad, but it's not working in the reality that your life works, that you're fully alive, that you're expressing your truth, that you're producing from your true self. Maybe you're producing as far as your work job goes, but as far as your real gifts, and so being able to sustain it and having love and relationships and vulnerability and everything, it doesn't. So this work is holistic. It's not just about succeeding in one narrow bandwidth and the rest fall apart. And you're an amazing example of this, of how every area of your life has only improved. Now, it wasn't necessarily easy, but it did
Oh,
improve.
it was difficult. There were many nights where I was like, God, I need to get back on the medications because I can't sleep. But the quality of life was so there, and it's so abundant and so living, and not so having to live, having to survive, and having
Yeah,
to go through the changes, but without feelings. Um, it was. I mean, this journey has been gratifying and hard, but it's so worth it to feel again and to live and not be just in survival mode, and be in the what's the word, fight or flight.
yeah.
You know, that mode is awful. I was
I
there
know.
for.
Yeah, I
I
was there
know
for
you were
years.
there
Yeah,
too.
yeah. Sleeping
Uh,
in my car. Yeah, it
yeah, yeah,
sucks.
yeah. It's a hard life when you're in that mode.
Yeah, and then add in all the victimhood, the stories, the narcissism, all the other. That's why I wrote the book. Everything in the book, or at least my version of it, something like that, I've gone through it myself.
I know.
So it. I know it works. It works for me. It apparently has been working for you, and um, according to the sales numbers for tens of thousands of other people, and it's amazing. Um, and I think this is a good place. So that's just part one. There's a whole second part of the book, but I think we'd be here for another hour.
Yeah,
Um,
my kids do come home here soon.
yes, and so and that's the other thing too. You're not um, a huge celebrity. You don't have $1 billion business.
Oh gosh.
You're you're this is a normal life, right? This is an everyday, which is not to diminish it. What it takes to raise kids, and you got these certifications, and you've overcame. I mean, this is remarkable. It's transformative.
And I
But
have no one else to thank but you. You have no. If I could hug you, I would, because you have no idea what you've done for me tremendously. It's on astronomical struggles for me, because this is getting my life back. This hasn't just, I'm not just telling you this because, I wanted to meet you. It's really has helped me huge. I'm such a different person that I'm still learning that, I'm still learning that there's so much more to live and so much more growing inside of me that I'm working on. And it's powerful. Like writing, I love to write. I find it therapeutic and needed every night. I sit out and I journal and I read, and you know, after my kids go to bed, I'm outside journaling and writing and thinking of ways, because I'm going to eventually write, but I want to see where my life goes currently to see how everything is going to play itself out. So I have something to talk about. But it's been a huge asset to me. I I can't even tell you. I mean, it's huge. It's done such wonders that I'm living and experiencing life, and I enjoy it. And I'm so passionate and emotion full,
Yeah,
emotion
emotional, full of emotion. Sure.
full of
I mean,
emotion.
it's remarkable. I mean, that's everything you're saying is why I wrote the book. And so it's thank you. I am honored. I mean, that's why I wrote it. Like, this is why I write it. A lot of people, I've met some people, and I know authors that don't write their books for that reason. They write it as a marketing piece. It's really fluffy. It's very light. It's the same stuff over and over again. They just want to sell copies. They don't really care if people use it. I literally tell people, don't buy the book if you're not going to use it. Like, use the book. Like, I wrote this to actually help people. And so to find that it does actually help people like yourself, and it's not an elitist thing. It's not for just one subsect of super heroic people. It's this stuff is applicable to everybody,
Exactly.
but you have to be willing to do the work. It's not for everybody, but everybody who chooses to do this, it will help.
Exactly. And it's done that and beyond. I mean, I've gone through the book and I've read the book, and I've applied it to my everyday life, and you know, I'm such a different person from what I was when I picked it up.
Well,
Such,
and you're so different, but the important thing is that you're actually more you.
yeah,
You're more who you really are than you've ever been, and that's the point.
exactly. Sorry, I have to. My kids are going to be here in about like
Yep.
5 minutes.
Yep. We're good.
So,
Well, we'll wrap up so you can get back to your life.
okay. I mean, I really appreciate this. This has been an honor. It's been an honor to read your book. It's been an honor to go through it and really done the legwork on my portion. It's woke me up. It seriously has made me so thankful that I don't know if I told you, but I have attempted suicide in the past, and I'm so grateful that that didn't work, because if it, I wouldn't be here for one, and I wouldn't have learned that there is a way out of it and a way to get unstuck and start living and start being appreciative and and being who you were supposed to be. So it's empowering, and I appreciate what you did and all the work you put into that book, because it made a life difference for me. It truly did. So I'm
Well,
grateful.
you're welcome. The honor is mine as well. This is what makes all of it worth it. And this is just the beginning for you. It's the beginning of a whole new life.
It is.
And you've learned so much. You're going to be such a great teacher. You've taught all of us stuff here on this call, and everyone that's going to watch this, and the people in your life, the people you're going to train, personal trainer. You're going to be able to infuse all these lessons into something like working out, and shine your light.
Exactly. it's made a huge difference, and I'm appreciative more than
Thank
you know.
Thank you. You're welcome. Anything else before you pick up your kitties?
I thank you. I thank you for this time that I get to talk to you. I hope I wasn't too nervous, but
You did great.
it's
Thank you for your courage. Yeah.
it's been an honor. It really has. It's been a true honor to, figure this out, and I'm so grateful. So forever grateful. And I mean that in every aspect. I mean, you woke me up from a 40-year sleep, honestly. And that's a long time to stop living. And now it's like, I tell everybody, it's like, I'm a 20-year-old person now, and I'm ready to live. So.
Well, get out of here and go live your life.
And I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Yeah, share that light, share that love with your kids and the people in your community, and that's how we really change the world. That's how we make this whole place better. We don't have to do these grand things. Just letting more of you through yourself and the people around you, it makes a difference.
It does. It makes a huge difference.
Well, thank you, Carrie. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your gratitude. It means a lot. I appreciate it. And thank you for being an example of someone who actually follows the instruction, reads the book, does the work, and gets the results.
It's powerful. It does work. I mean, if you could only see how many highlighted areas.
We saw some, yeah.
And then my journal on top of it where I wrote about it. It's huge. It's done a lot. But you have to do the work. You have to move. You have to, follow what you say, follow the exercises, do the exercises. Yeah, that hitting it full force, it don't feel comfortable. It's not supposed to.
Nope.
Anything that requires work's usually good. So I appreciate it a lot.
You're welcome. All right. Well, we'll let you go. Thank you so much again. It was great to meet you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Take care.
You too.